Have you ever asked yourself the question, why do I not feel as confident as I want to be? I mean, it's an interesting concept. We know what it looks like when someone is confident, but we can't pinpoint exactly what makes them so. We might look confident to other people, but internally we might not feel the same. In fact, we all have different definitions of what confident is. To some people, we might be someone who is always loud and energetic and always the center of conversation. But to others, it might be someone who is principled, who always goes by what they believe in. When it comes to this topic, I feel like I've gone through a bit of a journey, both in terms of what I think of the topic itself, but also in terms of my own confidence and growth. So I thought in this video, why not share a few tips and some of my views on this, and perhaps it can help you on your journey, extracted from my own. But before we get into the specifics, let's backtrack a little bit. So between 1990 something to 2000 and something, yeah, as a kid, I think I looked fairly confident. I mean, I always had people that I used to chill with. I was good at a lot of the things that I tried. I was good at a lot of sports. And you know, like, I'm not gonna say that I was the most popular kid in the school, but I was doing alright. But things were about to change. We moved here to the UK together with my family at the age of 14 from Northern Europe. And I'm not the only one who's made this type of move. You know, people move around Europe all the time. And in fact, some people have it much more difficult where they come from like war-torn countries and they leave family behind and so on. So I'm not trying to compare scenarios here. So although seemingly trivial, this specific time in my life was key in changing the way that I saw the world and the way I saw myself. At that age, I had moved to a completely new place, new culture, new people. I was suddenly in a place where I had no friends. I wasn't good at many things. I didn't even speak the language. And when it came to things like sports, that went out of the window. I was suddenly the smallest kid in the class and also the youngest. My classmates had all been in the same class, growing together for the last few years, and I had been there for 0. Obviously, this was quite a big hit. It was at this stage I started to question myself as a person. I had a lower self-esteem. I found it more difficult to talk to new people I'd never met before. I was less sure of my own qualities and abilities. And really, it took the next few years to try to intentionally rebuild this, but this time with a much more sustainable base. A quick Google search will tell you that confidence is the feeling or belief that one can have in or rely on someone or something. And therefore, being confident or confident is the feeling or showing confidence in oneself or one's abilities or qualities. So the common thread between both of these is the feeling or belief, which really to me signifies that this is an internal process rather than an external one. And so we get to the first realization or rule, if you will, for confidence from this video. And the first one is the realization that we are all human. Now, this is gonna sound a bit cliche because we hear it all the time in this context, but if you really deep it, there are some true gems that you can derive from this statement. When a person internalizes this statement, you understand that we are all the same one way or another. And with being human comes the inherent ability to improve at things and become good at the things that we try to become good at. You know, the common link between those definitions that we mentioned is this feeling or belief in oneself or their own abilities and qualities. And that's why, in part, why we find that some people seem more confident than others. They are good at something, they know it, and therefore they act like it. But in order to be confident, you don't necessarily have to be good at the same things that others are. You just have to realize that given the same circumstances, you could have probably done something similar or the same. Let's take an example. Mozart, from an early age regarded as a classical musical prodigy. He was composing music from the age of 5. He, in his lifetime, composed over 600 pieces of work. He performed in front of royalty and is probably regarded as the single most famous classical music artists amongst the general population. Now, I'm not going to downplay what Mozart did or his musical genius, but I do want to contextualize it so that we understand what this means for us. What many people don't know is that Mozart was born into a family of music. His father, Leopold Mozart, was a competent music teacher. His older sister was learning music from an early age, and so when he was born, he could just step or follow into her footsteps. He heard music from the very first day he was born. And remember, this is at a time when only very few would have this type of access. As a child, you don't have the time constraints or the responsibilities that adults have, so you can literally just spend all your time practicing in that thing you're doing. And so this leads to a very unique set of circumstances that then can allow you to get to this path of apparent genius. To many of us, he's regarded as a musical genius with inherent abilities that none of us could ever attain. But then remember, with all of those sets of circumstances, it's very easy to reach that specific 10,000 hour goal. 10,000 hours is what it takes for someone to become an expert. If you're practicing from a very, very early age and you rack up those 10,000 hours, what do you think will happen if you rack those hours up before anyone else? You become that prodigy, you become that genius. And so this begs the question, if you, me, or anyone else had those very same circumstances, don't you think that we would have been able to do at least something slightly closer to that, or at least become an expert? I'm not saying we'd become the next Mozart, not you, not me, I don't know who, but at least we'd be very, very good at that thing. And so the underpinning point that I'm trying to make here is that anyone in this world who seems like they're good at something, or that they're confident in something, or that they're an expert, they've probably put in 10,000 hours. And it's a mix of inherent ability and also the circumstances allowing them to put in those 10,000 hours. And so you and I might not have been lucky enough to have those circumstances, but then don't see yourself, and no one else should see themselves as lesser than anyone else or greater than anyone else. We're all equals with different circumstances and different expertise based on what we practiced. But this also gives us the opportunity to decide to become good at something, because now we know we need 10,000 hours to become good at XYZ. All right, let's decide to do that. And so we get into the next point. Now you realize that you could probably become really good at anything you set your mind to, with some caveats, okay? But we'll talk about those another time. It's time to put in some work. Because remember, confidence is the feeling or belief in one's own abilities or qualities, or in oneself. But if you have no abilities or qualities, then that's really not confidence. It's belief in a lie. And therefore, it's time to stop thinking, all right? And it's time to act. And this is where you decide to pick something that you want to become really good at, and you prioritize your purpose and you stick with it for 10,000 hours of active practice. Say you want to become really good at talking to people, then spend a lot of time getting out of your comfort zone and talking to people you've never met before. No doubt, if you've spent 10,000 hours talking to people you've never met before, you become a really good conversationalist. If you spend 10,000 hours practicing acting, then you'll become a really good actor. But the thing is, people find it very hard to do, something that's very difficult. And the reason is that we find it hard to start from zero. Our egos find it difficult to accept that we won't be good at that thing from the start. But remember that everyone who started from hour zero. You know, Mozart also, although very early, started with not knowing any musical composition at all. Bill Gates, by the time he built Microsoft, probably racked up more than tens and tens of thousands of hours of practice of coding. And so you can't expect to build a multi-million-pound computer company, or go and become super good at a new sport like American football, if that's what you like, or become good at a language, or become good at connecting with people on an emotional level, without starting from that very first hour, because everyone else did. And so what ends up happening is that the better you become at things in your life, then the more confident you become in yourself and in your own abilities and qualities. And it just becomes a positive feedback loop from then onwards. And this is essentially what I did. You know, when I was at the age of 14, I just thought, okay, it's time to prioritize my academics. And I became better at that. I got a job and I prioritized my job and I became good at my job. I prioritized this channel and I became better at making videos. And that's just how things work. And there are obviously many more nuances to this topic than just becoming good at stuff. But I feel that this is probably a key aspect of it. So I'm hoping that helps. And if you like the video, then like the video, comment, like, subscribe, holla back at your boy. Safe.